I'd like to share an anecdote, a very short one, which for me was a seminal moment in this whole election campaign. We didn't campaign like these political parties, but we were invited from the Sadikiwe group to a number of meetings. And one that I was invited to was a May Day meeting in Grahamstown, which was convened by the Unemployed People's Movement, UPM, which basically had a position of not voting at all. So it's Grahamstown, of course, the university town, but surrounded by rural poverty. And the meeting was organized in the town hall. It was full, about 400 people. Hardly any students. There were a few academics out of curiosity. There were about 50 activists from ZAPO, PAC, EFF, Communist Party, all in their regalia. None from the ANC, actually. And the rest were all basically rural people, rural peasants, rural poor. I was asked to speak on May Day, and everyone hung on to this and clearly was carrying them. And then I was meant to get into the election. So I then started on the election and Marikana and Kantla and the corruption and all the problems, and people were following very closely. And then I came to say, after reference to Nkandla, etc., I said, and this is the reason why we are now saying, don't vote ANC. There was this kind of silence. And then there was a collective drawing in of breath. Oh, what's he saying? And it wasn't an attack on me, it was people recoiling. Don't vote ANC. Oh my God. And I realized this was tricky and took it through quite carefully. We came to question time, and all the activists dominated with interesting but highfalutin questions. I wanted to get to the ordinary people, and I kept egging the chairman to note this old man, this woman, that person. And there was an old man in the front. It was a hot day, typical rural person, a very grey beard. Probably, it turned out he was 1 year older than me, you know, the difference between privilege and growing up that way. A lovely old guy. And he was in this overcoat. And I said, come on, Baba, what's the question? Tata there. And unlike the students, he made a question that was very brief. He got up and he said, oh, you're saying, through an interpreter, and I'd had a very good interpreter, you're saying we mustn't vote ANC. But then the Boers are going to come back. And then a pause. And then what's going to happen to our children? That was the question. Wow. I mean, that showed what I had believed from the start. You can ask certain people here what my predictions were for ANC, EFF, and DA. They were actually absolutely correct. I never saw the ANC coming under 60% because I know that in terms of its tradition, but what it's able to provide in terms of water and electricity and the housing, that it's not going to come under 60%. And there it was. So I answered him, and I said to the chair, it was getting on in the afternoon, I said, I want some time for this. And I took the audience through the agony of South Africa, this descent that's taken place. And, you know, he jumped up at the end and he said, oh my God, why hadn't you come and told us these things earlier? What's going to happen next? He was so shattered because I said to him, you worried about the children, Tata. The children will be working in Marikana. They will be shot down unless we make the change. So it's something I'm going to write about. But if we want to get to know and understand what we're dealing with, where the ANC is, what then will it take to reform it from within, to move it from both from without and from within, which is this kind of code language I'm speaking these days. I love the ANC so much, vote for the opposition, to shake them up. And, I don't know if it can work, who knows, whether people within are going to be able to move. I'm not saying this in a disrespectful way, the creature, the animals, what this is. And I'm very pessimistic because we have a situation now in terms of cronyism, in terms of patronage, in terms of what the state has and its resources and power. And that political elite, combined with the elite from the private sector who controls the economy, and the political elite have to depend on that, unless you're Cyril Ramaphosa and you're allowed into the heights of the private sector that way. I'm not mentioning Moletsi. He's got there on his skill and talent, etc. But whether we look at it, whether it's a Moletsi or a Cyril and the way they come through to it, it's a very small number. Because of the economic concessions that were made with the political dispensation, what I've called the Faustian Pact. And unless that can be broken, what is there? I just want to flag the fact that, maybe we'll get into this in the next round, William, that unless we can get an ANC or an EFF or a New Workers' Party adopting maybe a softer social democratic Mauritian model, or maybe a stronger left nationalization model, freedom charter clauses, the ANC won't get out of the situation it's in and will defend its interests now to the point where the security police will deal with anyone who seriously challenges.